Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wholeness and Quantum Experience. I'm your host today, Shannon Ledford, and I have Ava Adinolfi with me. So we're doing something a little fun today because often you'll see us together because we're co-hosting the show. And so often it's going to be us riffing with each other. But today I'm going to interview Ava so you can get to know her, and then she's going to interview me. And then we're going to have other guests on at some point as well. So, Ava, welcome.
Hi. This is fun.
Yeah, it's fun and different. We thought it would just be a good way for y'all to get to know us a bit if we went a little deeper than just the intro podcast. So, tell us a little bit about your journey with wholeness.
Wholeness. Okay. Could go so many places, but what's most present is sort of what's been occurring in the past year and a half, almost 2 years now. And that really started with, so I'm a cat mom, and I used to have two cats that both died 6 months apart in 2023. And I was never a cat person before they came into my life. In fact, I wasn't really into animals at all. And so that feels important to say because, they just like changed my life in this like really big way. Like I hated cats. It feels shameful to say that, but I hated cats. I didn't really like animals. I kept my distance. And it feels like they just like taught me unconditional love in a way that I think sometimes I don't know if humans are actually capable at this point in history of unconditional love. I mean, I'm sure like plenty of people could argue that point, but we're human and we place conditions, in my opinion. And so their deaths, especially Nessa's, just like really sent me. And it also lines up with like when the quantum energy wellness bed came into my life, or, us being business owners and having a bed together. It all like lined up, and it was like really this new phase of my life. Just like when I moved from Virginia Beach to Asheville, living in a really enmeshed family, coming here, I had physical boundaries for the first time in my life and actually started to learn what it was like to be in my own energy. Like that was one phase. And these cats came into my life during that phase. And then it was like their deaths and the bed coming in created this new phase of my life. And I keep describing it as a cycle. So I feel like when Nessa died, a big part of me died. And I've been sitting in the ashes for a good year. I feel like I'm finally starting to come out of them. And it's just been this really internal, super, super internal process. And a big part of that process has been using the quantum energy wellness bed. And we know that one of the ray tracks that we get on with is a wholeness. Also, before we knew that, we named our business Asheville Quantum Wholeness. You don't really get to have a business with wholeness in the name and not learn wholeness, like in a really profound way. Like that's just not how energetics work, right? I'm sure you'll have more to share too there.
Yeah, and just the synchronicity of one of the end rays in the first cycle is wholeness, and then it brings a part of the sound light journey. It's like the closure to the first big part of it, and we had no idea. So just the synchronicity of what was in front of us, what was meant to come through.
Yeah, exactly. It was so beautiful. And I feel like as you're saying that too, and I think we touched on this in the intro a bit, but it's like, wholeness, our understanding of wholeness is ever evolving, right? Like how I talked about it 6 months ago and how I'm going to talk about today is drastically different. And so we're constantly learning and fine tuning that frequency. Although again, I just want to go back to like, we're all already whole. If anything, we just, it's like traumas and identities and all these other stories and beliefs that sort of like get in the way, or like maybe like let that frequency wobble a bit. And it feels like, because again, that like aspect of dying and grieving in a way that I had never grieved in my life. And I did a lot of that on the bed too. Like you like are, I mean, I feel like my experience with grief is like this constant like purging. And so I wasn't only grieving my cats' deaths and them not being in their bodies anymore, but all the other stuff that I just had stuck in my body, whether it's ancestral, past lives, so many iterations of this life, like whatever it is, right? There's just so much to let go of, and there still is. And I remember even back, starting the ancestral journey with you, and early on, my grandfather's being like, empty. Like, you want to find emptiness. And I remember being like, oh, that does not sound good. But also,
that's funny. I was just gonna say that I remember how scary that felt for you. Like, literally horrific. You were like, oh no. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, again, because we associate emptiness with like being disconnected, because we are, the way in which we live these days is so separate, right? Separate from God, separate from love, separate from creation, separate from our wholeness, right? And so we fill ourselves up, right, with social media, with reading, TV, food.
Why are you calling me out right now?
I'm calling myself out too, right? But it's like we're constantly consuming, or we're over purchasing, right? Like consumption, and we're doing it to fill something. But actually what we're doing is we're like, or for me, I can just speak for myself, right? But like I'm clogging myself up and actually like breaking my connection to my wholeness, to God, to creation, right? And so, yeah, the messages that keep coming through, whether it's from my ancestors or even just being on this bed, is just like, yeah, empty. And the other message is like creation over consumption. We are beings of creation. We literally, like, a man and a woman have sex, they create a baby. I mean, obviously it's more than that. We have all of these beautiful ways of creating, but like, we are creative beings, and instead of being in creation, we tend to or our society anyways tends to prioritize consumption. And I know for me that's like been this big, I guess, understanding in this journey of wholeness, is like, if I really want to be in the experience of wholeness and be in divine expression, I only get to do that if there is space within my vessel for that to happen.
Yeah. I always term it static, because it always feels like staticky interference to me. And that when that quiets, when I'm tapping into my resources enough that quiets and creates the space, then getting to and staying in that wholeness frequency feels easy.
Yeah.
But we're being bombarded so much. I'll again speak for myself. I think that I have been habitually in this static state, and that like it's a comforting thing almost. It's like, it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be in this quieter, slower, more empty state, yeah. Which is actually crazy, because it's a slowing down of all that static, so that you have the space, but it means other things can happen so quickly, because you're in this relationship with God, in the resonance of wholeness, in flow. Like, we're talking about all of those things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
This is actually bringing up, so I was testing a money offering for someone last night and having a conversation with money. And it was a similar conversation that I had with money that I had with money, I feel like, a while ago, but it feels resonant of this like static you're talking about, because I'm asking, money, like, what do you want from me? Or, what can I do for you? How do you want me to see you? Blah, blah, blah. Right. And money is, yeah, can you just stop seeing me with all of the stories and programming that everyone wants to put on me, all these masks? Like, it's just like, money's just like, I'm just money. We don't need to put all this patriarchy and capitalism and rich, poor, and taxes, just all of these things, right? Like greed, like all of these stories that we all have about money. And I'm just like, I'm just money. And I feel like that's what we're get to with wholeness too, right? Like you is just Shannon and me is just Ava, and not our past trauma. Like again, I'm gonna say, right? Like I am not my trauma. I am not my trauma. That's something I have to keep reminding myself of, because we all want to like smack on these identities, which then I think just put us into victim mode. But it's like, if I can just be Ava and take off my trauma goggles and all the other identities, then I get to embody wholeness. And then life becomes this like different, really beautiful dance, like where we're bringing the quantum into the, like we're living in these 3D worlds, but like in a quantum way, which I think is what we all want, right?
Yeah. It's actually what we're all here for.
Yeah. Doesn't mean like it's easy, because I'm sure I'll go home this afternoon and be triggered by something.
There's such a huge, like I talk a lot about like, 99%, 95% of something for me is awareness, right? So as soon as I can be in awareness that I'm actually viewing it through my trauma lens, now whether I choose to continue to view it that way or choose to shift, without the awareness, there's no choice there. There's no discerning. So, yeah. Yeah, and the other part is that relationship. We've talked about this a bunch. I had a spiritual teacher at one point who talked about relationship with a thing. Like it didn't, all things are neutral. Money, sex, alcohol, drugs, love, all the things are neutral. In a lot of ways, it's really about your relationship with a thing. And so, yeah, I feel like money was, really schooling on that particular,
yeah, realm. Definitely. Yeah. Because too, it's like, if money is just money and I'm just Ava, then there's no reason for us to have this like weird push pull avoidance relationship, which is, again, just something that I'm moving through right now, because it's, how we're in relationship with one thing is also how we're relationship with a lot of things. And so it's
really?
like, I can see those, I can see those dynamics with sometimes in how like I am with like my family or my partner, Eric, and it's like, oh, okay. There's a lot of useful information there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Tons of useful information. Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about like the shift in your relationship with the quantum field and how that's shifting? Because I think we're in a time when so much is moving and shifting that there's space for a lot of this different relationship with, and getting enough space from the lenses to actually make choices and discern. I don't know if that was always the case. Like I think we're in a space where there's a time when there's more space for it.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how that, with the like shifts with your relationship with the quantum field, maybe play.
Yeah. So having access to this quantum energy wellness bed has been a huge game changer in that for me. And what I mean by that is it's a place for me to practice, right? It's this place for me to immerse myself in the quantum field, and nobody needs to hold that space for me. Whereas like if we're doing a session or something, right, you generally have someone holding space so you can go deeper, and that's beautiful too. What's great about the bed and the technology is that you have access to this quantum field that you don't have to hold, that can be held for you and not by anybody but by the technology, which is really beautiful. And you just have access to all the resources, right? Like it's limitless. and the static is, you know, out of the way. Like the static that you talk about, or the different stories and beliefs, like they might come in front of you to look at them, but it's like the space between you and God or creation or the universe, whatever word you want to use. Like there's not as much between you and that thing, right? Kind of how I was also talking about money, like all those stories between me and money. Like that all just kind of doesn't quite go away, but you have this moment where you can really practice being in that true creation frequency, the frequency of love, the frequency of wholeness. And then obviously if you're doing certain tracks, you can, you know, play with other frequencies too. But it's this place to practice. And so it's like the more you practice, the more you get resourced, right? Just like you resource your body with like quality water and fruit and vegetables, you know, like that's one way that I have been resourcing my body. And so I practice in the quantum field on this technology. And so when I'm off of it, I'm more resourced. Because I keep going back to this practice, when I'm in the 3D world navigating it, I have better access to tap into that field in my day-to-day life. And also what's been happening for myself too is that I have more clarity in the things that I'm meant to help resource me in other ways or help me progress in this journey come in front of me. And the resources to utilize them also tend to come in front of me. And so it all is, I guess there's like momentum, right? That's maybe a good word for it. There's momentum, there's clarity, there's deeper intuition. And again, like the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And so I'm going to just how like, you know, you go to a retreat and you just feel so expansive and so on top of the world. And then you get home and you're like, oh my God, how do I do this? What? Like that felt so good. And now you're like this changed person, but like your external world is not matching. You're just like, whoa. I'm not saying don't go to a retreat. Retreats are great. But what's different here is I feel like I'm going away into the quantum field. I'm practicing. I'm getting resourced. And then I'm coming out and then I'm practicing those skills in the 3D world. And I keep going back and like going between them. And so it's not just this like 7-day pocket of transformation. It's an hour of transformation and then days out in the real world being that different person, that different version of myself. Did I answer your question? I just kind of went with whatever came.
Yeah, no, I think you did. As you're shifting with the quantum field, right? And I think there's a couple of things there in that. I talk about this with the ancestral medicine some around if we take what you were talking about with money, right? And like you and money have a dance that you do and the dance floor is this big, right? Small. And you do the same steps over and over because it's the same stories and the same stuff, right? And you do that with your ancestors too, right? When things start to shift and get healed, it's like a fog lifts and you see how much more dance floor there is.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about being on the bed, it's like you're playing on that dance floor. And it's not that we don't necessarily, that we just like give up going to the patterns that we had all the time. They're all gone, but we have options. And when we know we have options and choices and can be discerning, it's a different thing. It's huge, actually. Yeah. It's huge. And the bed does that. And the bed does it in a really deep and profound way. Because the bed isn't doing it. Actually, this and ancestral medicine sort of work the same. It's like, it's not doing it for you. It's actually helping you learn to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So like when I hold a session of ancestral medicine with you to like go in deep with your ancestors, I'm not the conduit for your ancestors. Like you don't need me to be in relationship with them. Me and my people hold the space, right? And so the bed in its really profound, beautiful technology to even a deeper level, like just holds the space. And so while we're working with a realm that's like, oh, the ancestors, which is a particular angle of approach, the quantum energy wellness bed opens up the ability to take in a lot of angles of approach and helps decide in any given moment what's of highest benefit to you. Like actually your being's deciding. It's not that the bed's deciding, because the bed's not deciding. The bed's releasing the static so that your being can actually have the full menu and can choose what's the highest benefit for you in a given moment.
Yeah. And I want to follow that up by saying it's not overwhelming. And I say that as someone who can be easily overwhelmed by lots of options. When you're in the quantum, that's not the experience. You don't feel overwhelmed at all. It's it's one of the most peaceful places, I feel like,
because you're not using your mind to choose off that menu. Your divinity, your essence knows. You're getting quiet enough to let that process happen. The bed's taking away the static, you're getting quiet enough, and the bed's just facilitating the space for your innate self, your divinity, to do a thing. And then it's learning to do a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And
on that note, like that, like that's deep. Like I hadn't thought of, because we're on the bed, we love the bed, we watch our clients come off the bed and be shifted. But that was fun to talk about in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the more selfish reason for this show is like each conversation we can like hit a new level of depth and understanding around this like journey that we're walking with this technology in our lives, with ourselves. And I also just want to follow that up too, which I totally lost what I wanted to follow it up with. But just that, the other beautiful thing about the bed, or just to highlight part of what you're talking about, is how much the bed meets you where you are. And so while it's this expansive place of possibility, you are still in the driver's seat. So if you aren't ready for a thing, then that doesn't happen. Even if you, and I know this again, goes back to my ancestral sessions with you and my ancestors, because I'll be like, I want X. And then my ancestors are like, but are you willing? And I would get so mad because I wanted that, but I wasn't willing to take the action or do what needed to be done to get that. And so that's also going to be your experience if you do use any kind of quantum technology. It doesn't have to be the quantum energy wellness bed, or in anything in life, right? Like if you're not willing, if you're not ready, it doesn't happen. So I just want to also put that out there, because that's again, like, you are powerful. You are not a victim. And so with that power, like, you have to be willing and ready for whatever transformation, whether it's with your physical health, your emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever it is. It doesn't happen until we're ready and willing.
So we both know that the bed's a big tool for both of us, but do you have a favorite simple tool or practice that you do to like connect with your divinity, to tap into that wholeness frequency?
Yeah. So one of my favorite tools is actually not mine to share. It's a crystal light grid, and I'm hoping that we'll have Maria on our show and that she can share it, because it is badass. But what I'm going to share is, I'm calling it a quantum discernment tool, and Shannon's familiar with it. My ancestors gave it to me. It's a light rod. So you know how people talk about, having a full body yes, right? Before you say yes to something. And I don't know about you, but I used to think that I was having a full body yes to a lot of things. And so I would be like, yes, I'm doing it. Like, I'm so excited. But this rod, so I like to hold it kind of like an inch or so above my navel, above my belly button.
So that solar plexus area, yeah?
Yeah. And so it's a light rod, and I kind of imagine it like a double-sided lightsaber, if you will. And so this light rod, when you're and I think it's actually even bigger than a discernment tool, but this is just how I've started using it. And so, play with it. But anytime, and also people say, like people use
Pendulums.
pendulums, thank you, or muscle testing, or, these different ways, right, to look at things. And those never really worked for me, to be honest, but this one works for me really, really well. And so if you have something that you're considering that you want to do and you're really excited, you have to be careful about that excitement, right? Because excitement happens from the solar plexus up. And so it can lead us to believe that we are all in. And I have learned that is so not true and not good for me.
Just gonna raise my hand over here. Been there.
Yeah. So when you're feeling into this light rod, you want to see it go up and you want to see it go down from the navel, right? And sometimes I'll notice it will go in both directions, but it'll kind of flicker in and out. We don't want it to flicker in and out. That's not a hell yes. We're not saying yes if it's flickering or if it's just up. We want it to be up and down, and we want the frequency to be strong. The light, and you're using your imagination, just like you do with a lot of tools in the quantum.
And your intuition in there somewhere.
Yeah. And so, so I definitely, recommend, and you don't really have to, but I definitely recommend closing your eyes and just feeling into that, whatever it is, like feel the emotions around the thing that you are making a decision about. And then try to imagine that double-sided lightsaber or this light rod and just notice what happens, because this light rod is going to show you, I guess it's really like it's part of your own energetic structure, right? It's this tool to just show you how aligned or not aligned you are with something, because our brain, our emotions, our stories, our past trauma, right? They like to get in the way, as we've been talking about this whole time. And this light rod doesn't care about any of that. It just cares about you and what's in alignment with you. And so I think it's a great tool that when I remember to use it, I come back to it. And so far it's served me really, really well in a way that other things can't, because it's so neutral, right? Like it's not attuned to my emotions. It's attuned. The word that's coming to me is like the seat of my soul, like that super deep, like innate piece of me that's like living in this body and doing this human game. And so it knows what I came here for in a way that maybe I still don't understand. And so when I go to ask if something is for me, or I mean, you could even probably use it on like eating food, right? Like if you're playing the food game and trying to figure out what's best for your body, I think, even for simple things like that, it's a great tool. Look at investments. It's a great tool because, again, it's really, this light rod is dedicated, devoted, committed to you and what's in alignment with your mission on this planet in this time.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and you're tuning to yourself, to your energy system. And again, it gets rid of, we're talking about again, it gets rid of the static around it because you're tuning to you. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. So tell us about where we can find you, your offerings, that type of thing.
Well, I think number one is here in this office called Asheville Quantum Wholeness. If you're in the Western North Carolina area near Asheville, we'd love for you to come physically get on the bed. If you're not, we do distance sessions. It's actually how Shannon and I started. We were both doing distance sessions. I also did them for my cats. And it's just beautiful ways to experience the quantum, experience new levels of wholeness. And then for myself,
to play in the quantum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To play. And sometimes playing looks like crying with snot, coming, and all that good stuff. But yeah,
not saying it's always pretty.
Yeah. But again, and this goes back to, again, an older thing we used to say, or rather that used to say to me, is it's a worthy journey, right? Like being on this bed doesn't make life easier, but it will make it better. So, but yeah, so my other things that I offer, that's the more I come into my wholeness and let go of what's not me, it continues to be evolving and shifting. But my favorite thing to do right now, I'm realizing, is what I'm calling frequency business consulting. So my background since forever has been doing a lot of administrative stuff. And in the past, I don't know, 9-10 years, it's hard to, time is weird. I've done a lot of implementation support for coaches and course creators. You could use the term virtual assistant, online business manager. There's so many different terms, but often what pairs with that, and again, I tend to work with people when they have like a live program. So really like helping to nurture the client experience, what you experience on the back end of a business, what you experience on the front end as a client. We want it to be simple and a nurturing process for all. So I'm really tuned into that. And I just also love to be in the energetics of things. Like I've always naturally done that, haven't got quite paid for that because I didn't really realize how much value I was bringing in that space. And so, I even work with people who are already really energetically attuned. But again, as being these creation beings, when I come together with that other person who's really energetically attuned to support them on their business, like that collaboration and co-creation space, it just like really enlivens things. And so, and when your frequency, when your energetics are aligned, then your business just thrives in a way that, it might not without that. And so I just really love playing in that realm. And again, just more honoring or pairing really those like the 3D and the multidimensional skills to, as we're coming into this like new earth, if you will, pairing them together is just like really fun and exciting for me. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me today. Everyone who's listening, thank you for joining us as a way to get to know each of us a little bit more deeply. And we'll be coming to you with all kinds of things. Ava's going to come with a lot more around frequency marketing as we unfold some things here. And yeah, so thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time here at Wholeness, a Quantum Experience.
Bye, thanks.